Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Fargo City Commission meeting for Monday, April 2nd. First order is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Changes that we have are offer to purchase a resolution, and also Mr. Horniker would like to get back to the Twin Cities tonight, so we're going to move numbers 8 and 9 up to 1 and 2, and that's all the changes I have. 8 and 9.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, approve the minutes of the March 19th meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Building permits. Any questions on the building permits? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. On to the regular agenda. As I said, we'll move number 8 and 9 up. First, we'll take Gateway West First Edition final plat approval. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As previously requested by the applicant on this application, the ownership of the development has changed and a reapproval of the plat is being requested. To provide for changes in the plat, also the project narrative has changed to reflect the revised plat, and that's been included in the staff report. The plat has been revised to include additional regional retention and altered lot lines. However, the overall boundary and the major lots within the plat are unchanged. Developer's agreement is revised to reflect this change in ownership as well as clarify issues of retention. The overall conditions of the PUD are unchanged, and buffering from that adjacent residential development to the north is unchanged. Development on the lot would be subject to review by the Planning Commission and City Commission for the requirements of the COI Interstate Corridor Overlay District, but each development would not require an amendment to the PUD based on those, as long as it's developed based on those the narrative there. The larger lot to the west, however, will come back in at some point when that development is decided. I just need to add also, in addition to our recommendation, that additional condition needs to be added. The sequence of ownership of this property is going to take place on April 20th. On that day, the plat that we have today signed is actually for the owner that's going to take ownership. So we're going to add asking that we add a condition that the city attorney's signature should be held until he is satisfied with an updated title opinion to reflect ownership is accurate on the final signed plat. So in addition to the recommended conditions 1 through 7 in the staff report, adding that one condition there. With that, there's no public hearing scheduled for this. We've already approved this, and I've outlined those changes.
Any questions of Tim? And Mr. Horniker is here if there's any questions of him. If not, do I hear a motion for final plat approval?
I'll first say that I think this is a project we've been waiting for a long, long time over there. I think this is a very good thing, so we appreciate it. I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. It certainly gets us one step closer. It's come a long way in the last 2 years, that's for sure. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 9, Gateway West Interstate Corridor Review. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the review that I referred to in this Interstate Corridor Overlay District. The PUD didn't have these descriptive plans, but our ordinance requires that building and site plan review be done by Planning and Zoning Commission and City Commission. Traditionally, we don't go through a thorough staff or level review. We just have a brief review to ensure compatibility and aesthetic appeal along the interstate corridor. Approval is typically done in the PUD process, but this is just this process where we don't have to go through that whole hearing and everything. We can review it and have it take a look at it. So with this, I'm adding just that condition that staff is able to review all requirements of the ordinance, including building department and engineering, to make sure that they meet all those parts, but that you have had a chance to look at them, and if you have any concerns, to let us know as we consider final approval of the building plans. So building plans are in, and I think the developer hopes to get going as soon as they can this spring.
Any questions of Tim or the applicant? If not, do I hear a motion?
Ditto's what I said, and I'll make a motion again.
With the condition.
With the condition, I'm sorry, yes.
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Jim. Drive safely.
Thank you.
On to item number 1, public hearing and first reading for the adoption of the West Fargo Comprehensive Plan. Tim.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. This is the official public hearing to consider adoption of the West Fargo Comprehensive Plan to replace the previously adopted comprehensive plan, last adopted on December 17th, 2007. Public process for the comp plan included numerous activities and outreach. Our project kickoff had good attendance and some engaging discussion. Visiting sessions were held both during the morning with donuts and coffee, and in the evening we had hot dogs pop and kids activities with bouncy houses and the whole shebang. We had a lot of good attendance at those and had a lot of good discussions and pulled a lot from the public. Planapalooza was their week-long event, which included an open studio where the team worked while engaging the public through events and targeted meetings. A recent final open house was held over some bad weather, but there were some new faces that showed up, which was encouraging, and the reception of the plan was well received. Throughout this whole time, West Fargo 2.0 was delivered throughout the interactive project website, and staff and the consultant have conducted numerous interviews with radio, TV, and print media, as well as a strong effort across the city's social media platform. Staff has also presented the plan to numerous agencies and interest groups in the community. The plan is structured differently than our past comprehensive plan. The plan is intended to be an easier read, but there is still a strong emphasis on data for background, real solutions to issues faced in the community, and a clear vision toward maintaining a strong community, strong West Fargo. Plan contents include the typical background and history. They then go on to discuss the major components ranging from things like economy to transportation, even hitting on natural and social aspects of the community. It then takes from these cues and creates a map for what they call conservation and growth. This is what we typically would have seen in our land use map, but they take a sharp turn from that land use map and talk more about how the area is developed to integrate uses together and create connection. The use of this section called Around the Plan is given to show how these familiar places in town might look by incorporating those ideas. Where we used to say this land is going to be medium density and let the ordinances kind of dictate what's going to happen there, this plan looks at less about uses and more about how you integrate everything together in a community. So if you look at a vacant piece of land, it may say that should be residential, but residential doesn't mean houses. It may mean different types of housing and convenience commercial to be incorporated in there, and also places to work. The plan is finished with an action plan that serves as the city's goals and objectives. One item to note in this action plan is the idea of a community report card, which in my mind would take the place of the annual report and serve to keep the city on task with the goals of the plan. I also would note that there's a lot of things that we're working on already, and we started some of these discussions before the plan took place, but things like the capital improvements plan is really taking off, and this plan adds credibility to our need to do things like that. At their March meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing to consider passing a resolution approving the plan. Unfortunately, attendance at the Planning Commission did not meet the required 2/3 for adopting by resolution, so they'll have it adopted this next Monday. We left that extra month just for that possibility. During the public hearing, we had one member of the public who spoke to the hearing to encourage the Planning Commission and City Commission to hold a joint meeting to ensure that the two boards are in agreement with the effect on the development community of this plan. Further, staff has received written correspondence from the Home Builders Association, which is included in your packet. I've noted in the staff report, we don't have a lot of concerns about major contents of their letter. We feel like we can address that primarily by some of the positive things they had to say about how this is a good step in the right direction toward more communication. So we think adding goal to increase communication with them specifically, but also with other groups, is a good idea. The other items that we've looked at, I talked about in the staff report, the conservation idea that Commissioner Thorstad had brought up, that, you know, there's some concern that if there's areas outside of the diversion that maybe are outside of the floodplain, we don't want to talk about conservation in that. I think the language was just kind of wrong in how they put that out. We wouldn't want to have any perpetual easements or anything like that, because there's really potential for growth out there that we're seeing after these new flood maps that come out. And there also might be some really good opportunities after the diversion's built, if it's built on, you know, maybe there's nice pockets for growth over there.
Sure.
But really this plan is intended to be like sort of this higher level view of how the city should be poised for growth in the future, poised for redevelopment, how we become better able to respond to growth, and be sustainable in how we pay for all this stuff. And the plan really does a good job of that. With that, we're still soliciting comments. We're going to submit our changes to the consultant next Monday, and then we're going to get an editable document back. So if we need to push this back into May, or even later if we have to, if things are coming in, we can do that. We'll have the ability in-house to edit that. But we're hoping if things go well, we can be back here soon with a final approval. Our Planning Commission is ready to adopt it next Monday. Public hearing is scheduled. I'm available for any questions or comments, and we've had support from everybody on staff on this. We've talked about it a lot with everybody, so if there's questions of anybody, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions of Tim before we open the public hearing?
I guess I have, I don't know, Commissioner Thorstad, if you have any, I have one or two. You want me to go? Or
Yeah, I do, but I don't know if the mayor wants to
Mayor?
first or
Okay.
take our comments first.
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I guess the one is, I think that it's a very good plan. I mean, I've read it. I think we all probably have agreements and disagreements with some of the things in the plan. One of my concerns, I guess, and I want to make sure that I'm correct in understanding this, is that, you know, this is basically just another tool, so to speak, in the toolbox, that this is not cast in stone. I don't want our citizens, or I guess our developers for that matter, I'm concerned about the home builders for sure, and anybody else in our community, take this, that this is written in stone, that this is how we're going to move forward. I realize this is going to be our guiding force, but I want to make sure that there's flexibility within this plan. So when it comes to us to vote on it, I want to make sure that we're not voting on something that is, this is the way it's going to be, is kind of what I'm saying, Tim. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's really accurate. So if there's like a point in here that may push for change or push for something different, that discussion will be had if we were to change any law. So this really doesn't change any law per se. It changes sort of our overall vision as how we move forward. And, you know, that's where we've tried to make sure that if anybody's got an issue with one particular main theme in that, we should take care of that right now. But as far as changes, no, you're right. It's a tool. We use it to gauge how the public felt at this time. If we need to change it down the road, we can change it just as quickly as 2 meetings. So,
say for example, if we get 3 years down the road and we see something that says this just does not make any sense to do this here, even though the plan says that, we can change it.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Commissioner Thursday?
Yeah, as you noted, Tim, I have real heartburn over the conservation sectors that's noted in here, and I can't support this document as it's written now with the hope that it'll get changed. I'm actually quite disappointed. I gave feedback after the first draft in January, and I talked to the planners when they were here a few weeks ago, and nothing's been addressed. But you know, for it to state that these areas, and some of that area is included within the protected area of the new diversion, a good size chunk of that, and some of the area that is outside the diversion, with FEMA's recent mapping, is out of the 100-year floodplain. In fact, a good chunk of it is straight west and south of the interstate. So if we can amend the wording on this, if the board so chooses to move ahead with this, I'd like to change that wording and get that wording out of there now, because I can't support it as is when it says it will be kept in undeveloped in perpetuity is just not right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Thorstad, John, can we have a separate vote that says that we want that the conservation portion out of there, or can we make that a condition of voting for this, or if we were to do that?
Well, it's a great question. My suggestion is that you would have the public hearing tonight, take any comments, give that feedback to the planner, and then since it hasn't been approved by planning and zoning yet, bring that back with those considerations. If you have additional things that you would like changed, let Tim know that, and then at the next meeting, when you get final approval, then you would make those changes. I would suggest tonight that you would just want to have your public hearing, let Tim get that feedback about the things that you want changed in the plan, so he can take that back, kind of study it, and give you, what his views as a professional planner are regarding whether to take it out, or if there's some effect, really important effect in it that we're not aware of tonight.
That's fine, yeah. See, the engineering hasn't even been done on that section yet, and won't be for probably a year, and it's going to be 5-6 years if, everything falls into place, that project would even be done. So I think they're really jumping the gun, making assumptions without even having all the data there. So, again, if it can be worded as such as that it's a process that's in progress right now, and we'll know more later, and at that point address it somewhere down the road. But again, I think what John suggests, I could certainly live with that.
Okay, that's.
But I couldn't vote for this. A lot of heartburn.
John, is that who makes that decision? Is that a commission decision to take that in or out?
Ultimately, yes.
Well, then that's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? Then Tim, take it out next time we bring it back.
So if I could just quickly address, we're holding all of our comments together as one, to submit them as one grouping by April 9th for them to submit back to us. So my thought tonight was to have a first reading, but that a condition, and I put it in the staff report, making sure that language be changed. The first reading is on the ordinance to change the wording in our chapter 4 that states that the comprehensive plan is this. You still aren't approving the plan. This is just the first reading of the ordinance. So that's why I haven't addressed it yet, Commissioner Thorstad, is that we're giving them one full lump of edits, and that's just based on our contract with them. If we give them continued edits, we continue to pay for them to do that. And I just want to do it ourselves or have them put it in there with the one. So I might have been jumping the gun by putting it on tonight, but I didn't want to lose steam in this whole thing. So, and also, to speak to my comments on it, it doesn't matter necessarily if the line shifts on the engineering of the diversion. It's more about how our response to growth is. So if that line shifts, we'll just edit the plan like we talked about and put the new diversion alignment into that conservation and growth map. So it is what it is as we know it today. If that changes, we come back with an amendment to the comprehensive plan with a new conservation and growth map to reflect the change in the diversion. And then also thirdly, to speak to the conservation areas within the diversion, those were more intended for how infrastructure reaches that area. So if we're 2 miles out on infrastructure, we shouldn't allow development to occur there now. It should be, thoughtful when we spread the infrastructure up there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But no, I agree
call it an
completely.
area that's going to be determined or reserved, but when you say in perpetuity,
that
that means forever to me.
Yep. And that's why I put in our staff report that the use of the word perpetual will be taken out completely. We should not have that in there.
It's really conservation area. I would call it an area to be determined at some point or studied later or whatever. That's not addressed by the plan.
Okay.
Because anytime you say conservation, to me, that means you're setting it aside for however long you're going to do it. So I think if we can avoid a long, skinny city like Fargo, I think that's a positive thing for city services and everything else. If we can can expand out to the west. I don't know what the opportunities are, and we won't know more until the engineering's done.
We use the word preserve right now in our current comp plan, ag preserve, so we kind of preserve it for agriculture until which time urban infrastructure comes out there. I don't know if that's semantics or not, but
Be better.
yeah. The idea is you don't want to spread 2 miles of infrastructure out when you don't have anybody pay for it in between.
But,
Yeah.
I think though, what Commissioner Thorson is also saying is that we don't want to put anything on that train and get it going. Once it's on the train, it's hard to get it off.
You bet.
We'd rather nib it in the butt now before it even gets on there, Tim.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, if you don't mind, John, you suggest we don't hold a first reading tonight?
No, I would suggest that you'd hold the public hearing. You can approve the first reading, but give all the comments to Tim, have him take it back so that it's all in one
We don't vote.
package for the Tim, or for the.
Yeah, we will vote on first reading.
I should have clarified that. Because you're right, it's only a first reading tonight.
Planning and zoning hasn't had the opportunity to review this publicly either.
They did. They just didn't have enough members to do the 2/3 majority. They had a quorum, but in the state century code, it requires a 2/3 majority. So we needed 6 members and we had 5. So,
That sound,
That's
Okay.
what I prefer, what John is suggesting.
okay?
sorry for the confusion on that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but I think a lot of what is in this comprehensive plan for this version at least is more kind of geared towards our city is filling up, and so we're looking at different ways to be a little more dense and as we fill in, and then when more land becomes available, then we can make changes. Am I reading that correct?
Potentially. I mean, you know, so if there's an area that's vacant and you can spread infrastructure to it and everybody can pay for it, then, you know, so be it if it's less dense. And maybe there's opportunities for all within the plan that if the market says we need more low-dense housing, then, you know,
Okay.
so be it, as long as they can afford it.
So that's got that flexibility that you're
Yeah.
talking about.
I think overall it's a good plan. I'm not
Yeah.
in the plan. I just, that one
It's a
part
big deal, yeah, you don't want to pass.
is the one that I don't like.
You're right. I mean, yes, absolutely. I'm concerned with that.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions of Tim before I open the public hearing? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? One more time, is there any public comment? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the city commission. Any other comments, questions of Tim? Again, thanks to everybody in the staff for all your work on that, and I know it was a huge project and involved a lot of hours, and I think we came up with a good plan, so I want to thank everybody for that.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to put it on first reading?
make a motion, put it on first reading?
Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Can I clarify the board, is this just to change the ordinance or to?
Yeah, absolutely, yep, just to change it.
Ordinance wording, okay.
Yeah.
I'll vote for that.
So is that an aye then?
It would be an aye.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you, Tim. Next one, public hearing and first reading on rezoning of Mall's second edition. Tim?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to close that, sorry. The application here was received to clean up a property line. Unfortunately, because the property added to the subdivision is undeveloped and unzoned, the applicant needs to rezone the newly platted property within this subdivision. The subdivision rezoning is consistent with city plans and ordinances. At their March 12, 2018 meeting, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and reviewed the application, and is hereby recommending approval subject to the conditions noted in the staff report. Available for any questions. The public hearing is scheduled.
Any questions of Tim? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? One more time, is there any public comment? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the city commission. Any questions of Tim or comments?
Just a quick question. At one time, they used to do concrete recycling or something here. Are they doing that anymore on the property? Not that it matters, I was just curious.
I'm looking at Dustin. He would know, no? Dustin would say no. No, it's a heavy industrial, so they're could be with conditional use permit there, but they,
I know they got a conditional use. They were doing it for a while. I just thought maybe it was a temporary thing. I don't know if they are. I was just curious whether they were or not.
they just had built our building over the property line, which you can kind of see on that picture there, so.
Any other questions or comments? Not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved and second to put it on first reading. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 3, public hearing and first reading on zoning ordinance amendment 4-460.9. On this one, Commissioner Thorstead will be abstaining.
Thank you, Mayor. This application we received in order to amend the city's sign code to provide for similar procedures for obtaining additional signage for properties within the P Public Facilities District. Typically, institutional identification signage may be increased through the means of a conditional use permit when it is zoned residential or ag. That's when the churches or schools have been before you with this particular request. When the P District was created, this was not provided for, and the issue had not come up for various reasons. Staff does not have any concern with amending the code, and is comfortable because it mimics exactly the institutional signage requirements in the ag and residential districts. To accompany this, the West Fargo Public Schools swim facilities has placed a sign on the building to better identify their center. That sign was placed by the UP Aquatics Group. In general, staff does not find an issue with reviewing the criteria for granting a conditional use in this case, and if indeed the amendment is approved, it should be also approved. So tonight we're having a public hearing and have scheduled the first reading, but at the second reading we would have consideration of that conditional use following this amendment. They do not have it lit yet, that they have placed it. They placed it for, I think, EDC swim meet. So they are aware that it's not technically meeting the ordinance right now. We've discussed it at Planning Commission. We notified property owners within 350 feet. We actually only received one email which supported the sign going up, which we don't normally get. So at their March 12, 2018 meeting, the Planning Commission held that public hearing and reviewed the application and is hereby forwarding the recommendation for approval. That I'm available for any questions, and a public hearing is scheduled.
Any questions of Tim?
Tim,
Yes.
is somebody here from Indigo Signs?
No. No, there's not.
I guess what I want to know is why is the sign up? Well, we haven't approved it yet. And I know, I don't want you to really even answer that, okay?
Yeah.
But I honestly, you know, we do this stuff. The last person that did this, we made him take it down.
Yeah.
And we have no teeth in this, and this, to me, this shows total disrespect. When somebody goes out there and puts a sign up, they know they have to come from us. They know they have to get a permit, and they put it up. But honestly, I want to deny this dang thing and have Jill come and explain to us why the sign is up. So, at this point, my motion is to deny.
Is there a second? Oh, well, wait, we need to have a public hearing.
Okay.
Any questions of Tim? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? One more time, any public comment? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any questions of Tim?
Tim, did we, in getting the sign up, was that a request of the school, or, 'cause you mentioned the EDC?
Yeah.
Meet, but I agree with what Commissioner Simmons is saying, that we still have to follow policy and procedure, but did the schools reach out, or what?
I don't think.
What was the conversation that?
Well, the sign was placed at the direction of UP Aquatics, as I had stated in the staff report. The school was uncomfortable with it going up, but I think the point of this was that they were trying to recognize the gift of the Hulbert Center, and so there was push on the aquatic facility because of the gift to get it up before this event that had exposure. It had a lot of exposure in the state, and to their credit, the school was not for putting it up quite yet. They wanted to wait, but you know, it's just one of those things. We don't have a fine structure set up, and from what I understand from the city attorney, we can't fine. The only thing we can do is cite them to court and go through a 2-month process. And you know, I think they didn't intend to break the law. They thought they weren't, and they just got one up for the West Fargo Sports Arena similar to this, but.
Tim, I will disagree with you because I think they knew darn well. I can be a little more open than you can. I realize that, but
Yeah.
Mark, they knew darn well they were putting that sign up illegally. Jill has been with that company many, many years, so they knew. I mean, the school district had nothing to do with it. They were very, and I'll say upset, but pretty much that it was going up. They weren't very comfortable at all. So, and like Tim said, we have nothing we can do in retaliation, and that's something we have to change moving forward too. We have to have some teeth to be able to do something about this.
And you're correct, we did that in the past, we did ask.
We made them take it down. I don't want to go that far, but I want at least
Is this something we can delay and have a representative come in front of us and talk about it? So
Well, we could delay it all day because it's up anyway, so it doesn't matter. I mean, it's already there. What's done is done, but yes, I think that we should at least, I mean, what happens if we deny it? Nothing anyway. It's just like, it's already there.
Well, if you
Probably better to
deny it, they'd have to take it down, and I suppose they would have the right to appeal it too. I do have one suggestion about possible enforcement. You could put as a condition that any future, if this is sort of a warning shot, this is the last time they'll allow it. If they do it again, you'll deny any permits in the future.
Well, John, I'm pretty certain that's what I'm doing here tonight in front of the cameras and everybody else is throwing that warning over the bow. You come in front of us and you tell us before you do something. But I do want to, at the minimum, delay it and have, Indigo come in front of us and explain to us.
Commissioner, this is first reading, so we can make that a stipulation that before second reading, somebody, a representative has to come before us. Can we not do that?
Yeah, you could add that as a condition, and I think you could also suggest that this company that installed it, if they don't comply with the ordinance in the future, you won't grant any building permits because they're considered out of, or building or any type of permits because they're considered out of compliance. And so I would put that as a condition tonight that they come before you, and if they don't satisfactorily explain it, then you'd put a condition that this is if you do it again, you're not going to get approval. You have to seek a condition to getting a future permit. You have to apply for a permit before you construct the sign.
What do you think, Commissioner? The sound?
Sounds fair.
Okay, I'm good with that.
We'll have another opportunity
Yep.
on second reading.
So
Do that.
I'll make the motion, put it on first reading.
Okay. Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 4, public hearing, not sufficient protests filed on Street Improvement District number 2253. John.
Mayor, members of the City Commission, tonight is a public hearing for Street Improvement District 2253. Just in general, it is a asphalt overlay for the Goldenwood area. We have not received any protests thus far, but you're still required to have the public hearing. Following the public hearing, you just need a motion to confirm that insufficient protests weren't received. So, and Dustin can, if you have any engineering questions, I'm sure you can talk about it, but it's pretty straightforward asphalt overlay.
Any questions to John or Dustin? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? One more time. Is there any public comment? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the City Commission. Do I hear any kind of motion?
Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 5, another public hearing for an addition to our Renaissance Zone block. Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. Before you, we have a project that is looking at the old Sherman property along Main Avenue. One second. So in February, the EDC reviewed a preliminary application for Visto's trailer. John Knorr, the owner of Visto's trailer, has purchased the Sherman property and is pursuing a Renaissance Zone project. In order to do that, we need to add the block into the Renaissance Zone project first, and then the commission can hear about the project, or hear the project next. I'm going to talk about them both in conjunction. I'm hoping that maybe you can just do one vote and then the second. So the current buildings are vacant. John Knorr bought them from Sherman's Plumbing, or Sherman's Well Drilling, and he's making some minor improvements as it is. The current value of these buildings are about $157,000 and a lot of disrepair, and he wants to put in an additional $150,000 to each building, so he's to add $300,000. What they want to do is they want to reskin the outside. In his opinion, they have strong bones, but the insides are in kind of some significant disrepair, as you'll see later in this presentation. Both of the buildings will be gutted and turned into shop and office space. In addition, he'd use the rest of the property to expand his trailer and car sales that he currently has down there today. We do have room in order to approve this project. You need to first put the block into the Renaissance Zone. This last summer, they changed the Renaissance Zone language, allowing us to have more blocks. So we currently have 9 additional blocks we can add to the Renaissance Zone. This is the location in question. Again, it's on the west side of Visto's trailer. And this is a current map of our Renaissance Zone with the proposed block. Here's a picture of the exterior of the building. That'd be the building that is along Main Avenue. Here's some photos from inside. And there's the rear of it. And there's the second building that's back off Main Avenue. He wants to reface it with a combination of metal and non-metal material. In some of his buildings, he had those hardy board, and other he had like a brick type material. Also, he's going to add some glass on the exterior, and then the back sides would be more corrugated metal. The EDC has reviewed both the additional block and the Renaissance Zone project, and they recommend approval. And I'm available for any questions that you might have.
I think this is exactly what the Renaissance Zone was meant to do, was take, let's face it, dilapidated looking buildings and have them redone, and it'll be, I think, a welcome addition to Main Avenue once the work is completed. So I really would encourage us to do this, add the block. So any questions of Matt before I open the public hearing?
Just one question, Matt. We've got pretty much the whole south side of Main Avenue, except just the little corner there where Casey's is, which Casey's is fairly new, but there's some older structures around there. Well, is there a reason we're not including them, that we just have that little small gap now?
Correct. A conversation that we're having in the EDC and part of our strategic planning discussion is, do we put these blocks in right away and wait? Maybe keep a couple in case there's some project that you can't live without, but try and initiate some things. In the past, when they had approved blocks, they were really generous about what was considered a block. The one downside about the block you're talking about is that there's a road that goes right in the middle of it, and we might not get the entire block as we see it. That includes all the houses and the Casey's and Matt's trailers there, because there's a road that kind of dissects it. In the past, they've been pretty lenient. However, in the last 5 years, now any road, railroad track, or separating area, they end it right there.
Is that a real road, or is it a dirt road? Is there just a dirt access road?
Yeah, even alleys these days will
I just think there might be opportunities, maybe not so much with Casey's, but, you know, those other properties around there are fairly old, and
I would agree.
I guess you can always add it. You got 9 blocks left. It's gonna be the only spot we have left on the south side of Maine that's not included.
We have had blocks in the past that we put in and then taken out again because nothing happened and we waited and waited. So, you know.
How many blocks do we have, Matt?
29.
So we can always add though.
Yeah.
And if somebody wanted to come and do something, we have 29 blocks, we could, if we had to use 2 blocks for a decent project, if they had to.
Yeah, just to clarify, we have 29 in today.
Oh, no, how
we
many?
have
We got
9
9 left.
additional.
That's what I meant, how many we have left? 9, okay.
Well, that's fine. I just thought, well, if we're doing it, we'd
Yeah.
have the whole row and have that's fine if you can do it without too much hassle. I just think there's probably gonna be some opportunities at some point there too.
That said, we have an EDC meeting on Wednesday. I'll bring it up and see if the EDC would consider preemptively giving you guys a recommendation or considering it. I haven't sent it out with their packet, but we could maybe hear it next month too. But I'll bring it up. It's a good idea. Thank you.
Any other questions of Matt before I open the public hearing? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? Frank?
I have a couple questions, Matt. There are some houses, single-family, Frank Lensmeyer is my name. Houses right west of this road. And there's been a problem for years with that street alley running across the north side of the apartment building there between Metz Company. And there's been a lot of traffic going down that road. Is there any chance that that's going to be improved in the process of this project? There's been traffic, you know, and is it going to cause any more traffic on that road into this area? Or is it all going to be serviced from Bristol's side?
Let me just ask a couple of questions to make sure I fully understand. You talk about traffic that goes into the residential neighborhood?
Yeah, and we've got traffic going, a lot of traffic going by there into those apartments, into the mobile home park,
So they
and coming up on the west side of this property. That's caused a lot of trouble for those 3 houses or 4 houses.
Okay. It's not as far as the scope of this project goes, the road is not being discussed. However, I do know that this property owner is trying to work with the property owners to the west and purchase those homes. At that point, maybe there'd be an improvement to the road or something else, but at this time, there's nothing that I know of.
I'm aware of citizens that have lived there that have even wanted to get some salting or something, or some kind of dust control on that street, putting up with a lot of traffic. I think it's warrants looking into. Thank you.
Is that, Chris, is that a private drive though? Oh, it's public. Is that public alley we've been dealing with forever?
You're talking about First Avenue and 10th Street East are the 2 roadways they're talking about on the backside. And if you remember, about 6 months ago or so, we brought that forward to the commission to move forward with a project in the area. But since that time, Vistos acquired the Sherman property, and he does not intend to improve that road, nor was he in favor of moving forward with a project to pave that road. Brookwood Mobile Home Park they are not in favor of moving forward with that project either. I think they're trying to assemble some properties there. I'm speaking for Vistos from what I've heard. I think John here, he can probably speak for himself. But I think he's trying to assemble some properties and potentially move that road to a different location. And that's why he's hesitant to have any type of improvements done.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all along that First Avenue, the problem we always have is that when we move forward to do a project there, the citizens there's not enough people to vote for it, so by law, we can't do it. We can't just go in and do that project.
Correct.
So that's the problem we are all along that avenue, right? I mean, so.
Exactly, all the First
So I think that's the problem we have.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gravel road. It takes much more maintenance than the cost to put it in. Right now, we have a lot of problems out right now. There's a limited amount of drainage that's there. It truly is a difficult road to travel down right now.
Doesn't there come a time, though, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
We're probably totally off track, but one more. Doesn't there come a time when the PD can go in and say, okay, this road is totally unsafe, and we have to do it by law? Isn't there a point in time when that happens? I don't want to put the chief on the spot, but I remember we had to do that at Sunmart one time.
I mean, there's questions we've had this, we've had several other gravel roads in the area that we discussed this about, like, Nelson Acres in that area. And the school buses started having some difficulties going there. At least then the neighborhood got together and agreed to bring in more gravel and put it part of a project. But I'm unsure if there's any way to actually close a road saying that it's unpassable. I mean, probably do that. We did that with a minimum maintenance road here a couple of weeks ago. But, John, would you know of anything?
Yeah, I mean, the city commission could close a road if it wasn't, if it wasn't safe for the public to travel. I think the real issue is how you pay for improvements. We can't, most of our improvements are done through special assessments or partially paid for with special assessments. If you have property owners who constantly block the special assessment process, it's very difficult for the city to improve it. And so it essentially goes to the bottom of the list for sales tax dollars, because there's not, I don't know of any project that we fund with 100% sales tax.
And then we get really yelled at if we close the road, so.
So it
just one of those.
The best you could do is some minimum type of improvement, add some gravel.
We do that all the time. We do minimums, so, okay. Let's get back.
Right now, let's get back to the one block that we're either yes or no here. Thanks, Frank, for bringing it up, but we certainly will look into it a little more.
What's happening right now is unfair to the people.
Bet. Any other questions on that? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? One more time, is there any public comment? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the City Commission. Again, this vote is just for the addition of adding that block to the Renaissance Zone.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the approval of the Renaissance Zone application for Vistos trailer. Matt.
Oh, I apologize. Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Still up.
Still
How was La La Land?
I know you're sleeping there.
Again, as I mentioned, the project is to clean up two dilapidated buildings. The EDC's reviewed them. The information's in your packet, and they recommend approval.
Any questions on that? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. Is there a time frame? Are they looking for soon?
This spring. They are doing some lot cleanup to try and address some of the drainage issues that are going on out there right now. And there is a big step taken today with the platting process. John was able to give some information that's going to help move that forward.
Okay.
Once they get that cleaned up, then they're going to start this spring. So.
Good. Glad to hear it. Item 7, appoint members of the West Fargo Events Committee. If all of you remember, a group called West Fargo Events has taken over the management of the hockey rink, the 2 sheets of ice on 32nd, and also the Cheyenne Plaza. They're going to work on events there throughout the years, and also down on 32nd. What they're looking to do is to start a board of directors consisting of 2 school board members, 2 people from the city, and 1 Sharon Odegaard from the Park District. And so these 5 members would come up with some bylaws and those kinds of things that we're looking at, and also the events committee the events group would seek out sponsorships and those kinds of things for different events and schedule different events for the 2 plazas. So tonight I'm asking to appoint 2 members of the group. I will volunteer to be one of the members. And I think I have another volunteer.
I would volunteer to be on that group.
So we would need that kind of a motion.
I'll make that motion. Just a question, are they gonna also handle the city events like West Fest? And, that's gonna be done by
That's a
someone else?
separate
That's
tourism.
the Visitors and Tourism Committee. And,
Okay.
Melissa is going to play a much more active role in the Visitors Committee and overseeing some of those things too, along with this committee, Visitors Committee. No, there might be some overlap, and it's a good question. There might be some overlap in that the Events Committee might seek sponsorships for the street dance that will probably be in the plaza, but the actual West Fest Parade and other events would still be.
So they'll be coordinating together anyway.
Yeah, that's the idea. The 2 groups would work
I'll make
together.
a motion then, to recommend appointing, Mayor and, Commissioner Simmons to that board.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Moving on to item number 10, first reading of ordinance number 1110. John.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Commission. The first ordinance reading 1110 is just adding a provision that carrying a receipt for the tabs on your license plates is evidence that the tabs have been renewed. And then the first section of the ordinance amendment is just a cleanup. This is just matching in the state law and adding in the evidence that if you're carrying the receipt from your tabs, you've renewed them up to 15 days. This is matching current West Fargo Police Department policy where they'll allow that. So, first reading, I can answer any questions, but it was really straightforward.
Any questions to John? Not, do I hear a motion to put it on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 11, first reading of ordinance number 1114.
This is an ordinance that really is reflecting a change in how marijuana can be used in this case, consumed. It is making it a penalty to consume or ingest marijuana. Like I suppose it would be in the form of brownies or something like that. So, can answer any questions that you may have regarding this.
Any questions of John?
I suppose it could be gummy bears too.
Would it exclude medical
Yeah.
marijuana?
Yeah, anything that's allowed under the Medical Marijuana Act, it would not, there's a specific exclusion to that, so.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions of John? If not, do I hear a motion? Put it on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. On item 12, review the bid tab for Street Improvement District number 2244.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the Commission. District 2244 is segment 1 of the Big Cheyenne Street project. This segment is from 13th Avenue to Beaton Drive. We had a good turnout for the bid opening. At this point, we are going to recommend awarding a contract to Northern Improvement for their bid of $5,443,981.15. The engineer's estimate was $5.5 million.
Any questions of Dustin?
Estimated start date on this, if we ever get rid of snow in winter?
That's the first trick. At this point, we haven't had a pre-con yet, but I anticipate that they would schedule a pre-con here this week or next week, and then possibly start as soon as the week of the 16th. That would be the earliest.
Yeah. We're gonna try to save some of those trees. There are some nice trees along there, some that aren't.
Right, yep. The intent is to save as many trees as we can. What we've decided to do is the project, for the most part, will hold the west alignment, and we are going to add or widen the road to the east. Unfortunately, one of the phases during construction, when we have the traffic moved over to a temporary gravel road on the west side along those properties there, we obtained easements from all but a few property owners. The purpose of obtaining easements was to build this gravel road away from the large boulevard trees. Unfortunately, with a few of the property owners not giving us the easement, we have to move this gravel road back into the boulevard, which means we have to remove a few of the nice, large, historical trees that hopefully we can maybe continue conversations with them, but we've had several meetings with the property owners, and they just are unwilling to give an easement for us to put the gravel road on their lot. So in that regard, unfortunately, we're sad to see a few of those trees will be removed.
Wow. Yeah, it really is too bad.
John, I have a question on the bid, or Dustin, actually, maybe both of you. If we approve this bid tonight, there are some variables that have come into place here that they're saying don't quite know about, and so I'm just wondering, I guess, how can I put this? Do they need to have this bid approved tonight? Put it that way. Let me ask you that question. Does this have to be approved tonight?
No, we can hold the bids for another, I think, up to 30 days. So we can hold the bids. Would there be an issue with a concern with holding this bid for 2 more weeks? Well, can I ask what the issues are with this particular bid?
Well, there's some concerns with traffic that I'm concerned with. And I would prefer, as a commission, if we'd hold this bid for 2 more weeks. There's just some concerns that I have with it, and I think that the bid, I think that they're going to use this a little bit against us in the bidding process, I guess. That's all I really want to say about it at this point, but if it isn't going to hurt us to hold it for 2 weeks, I prefer that we hold this out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's within the city's
Is it going to hurt them any for 2 weeks? They're not going to do anything in 2 weeks anyway. Obviously, we still got snow out there, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's, at this point with the snow still out there, I don't anticipate construction starting. Delaying it another 2 weeks might add 2 more weeks before they start, but that's probably the biggest consequence.
Okay. Is that okay?
I think you can get your concerns hopefully addressed within 2 weeks.
I think they will be answered within 2 weeks. They'll probably be answered within a couple of days, but they just won't be answered right now.
Sure, yeah, I just hate to see us get it too delayed, you know.
Okay. Can I make that motion that we delay this for 2 weeks?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item 13, review the bid tab for sewer improvement project 1310. Dustin.
And thank you again, Mr. Mayor and members of the commission. Right before the meeting, I provided you each a handout, and if you bear with me here for a few seconds, I'm going to hand out some additional information. What I've just handed out is an attachment that was supposed to be provided along with that letter I handed out right before the meeting. You'll see in the second paragraph there, I refer to a letter that was sent and that it's attached. So just wanted to make sure you had that. We opened bids last Thursday on the 29th for District 1310. This is the redundant sanitary sewer force main project. Basically extends a new force main from the South Regional Lift Station up to the tie-in location that is just south of Main Avenue along Drain 21. Shortly after tabulating the bids, we received a call from the apparent low bidder, which was KPH. They had informed us of an error in their bid. As you'll see I've explained this a little bit further in the letter, but basically they provided documentation that it indicates an error in a specific item, item number 32, which is for a maintenance manhole, and explained that they left off $11,000 in material per item, or per quantity for that particular item, which resulted in a shortfall of $140,000 in their bid. So, getting that information late, what I decided to do was put the bid tabulation on the agenda without a recommendation letter, so that I could have time today to talk with Tina, John, and Chris. And upon discussing it further with them, we felt that it was appropriate to withdraw KPH's bid and move on to the second low bidder. We also discussed the possibility of filing a claim against their bid bond. We haven't had a lot of time to really absorb, to go through their information and see, what does filing a claim against their bid bond entail? What is the likelihood of being successful, so on and so forth. So we haven't made a final decision on whether or not to file that claim. But as I indicated in this letter, we're going to, at this point, recommend that we move to award the bids to the second low bidder, who was Master Construction, and then we will follow up in the next week or two on whether or not to file a claim against their KPH's bid bond. So,
why would we? I mean, it was a mistake.
Well, just briefly, a bid bond is submitted with a bidder's bid, and the intent is that if you are a bidder and you do not honor that, the owner here, the city, can pursue a claim against the bid bond for the difference between the low bid and the next bid. So whatever that spread is, in theory, the owner can go after that. There's the reason that we need a little bit more time in this situation is looking at what their mistake was, whether or not we think that from a risk factor, if the cost of pursuing the litigation would make sense and what the result would be for the city. We just don't have enough time to really analyze that yet and see if it's a good claim for the city to bring. And there's also a question of if the engineer believes it truly was a mistake, then there's another layer of discussion for the city also if you want to pursue the bid bond. We're just not ready to recommend whether you'd pursue the bid bond, and we just wanted to make sure that we were keeping that option open when we brought it to the city.
In the meantime, you're recommending going with Master Construction. Is that
yeah,
what you're asking us to vote on tonight?
Correct. What we are not going to do, in the letter that KPH wrote, they basically asked to change their bid to reflect this additional $140,000. We're not going to recommend making that change. So we would recommend moving forward to the second low bidder. And back to John's point of determining whether or not KPH has a sufficient claim, one of the reasons why we're skeptical of the claim is that there was another bidder that furnished the exact, or really close to the same bid price for that particular item. So the bid prices for that particular item ranged from $40,000 up to $60,000, and there's 12 units in that item. So, there was a range, but we're a little suspect on whether or not it was an error versus, well, to quote Chris earlier today, was it a bad business decision? We don't know that yet, but what we do know is that in the effort of moving forward with this project, regardless of if we file a claim against KPH's bond, we do know that we're going to proceed to the next low bidder, which was Master Construction. You'll see in here too in this letter that I provided that we did reach out to Master Construction, talk to them. we're all aware that they've recently won a couple other significant projects, i.e. 13th Avenue. So there was a concern, of course, on our part of whether or not they have the capability to take on another significant project. They did send us a document indicating that they have, at this point, 5 or 6 projects in the area, 3 or 4 which conclude in June, one of those being 19th Avenue on the north side. Out of their workload right now, they don't have much for underground work, so they said they have several crews available to do a sewer project like this. So with
This was in, you said this was in the letter?
Master Construction sent us
A letter.
an email outlining this stuff, explaining that they have the capability and availability to take on this project.
So you'll be saving that?
Yes, sir. So, with that, that's where our recommendation at this point was to move forward with awarding the bid to Master Construction for their base bid plus alternates 1, 2, and 3, which was a bid price of $2,405,509.
Okay. Any other questions of Dustin?
Yeah, Dustin, I guess, maybe I'm not looking at the numbers right here, but even with the changes of KPHs, it looks like they are less than master. Is that true?
Yep. So
I understand we don't want people to come and say, gee, we figured a little low, we want more money. I understand that, but there's still less money than the second bidder, so the reason you're going to the second bidder is because they're trying to change their bid. Is that?
To use the contract language, we're considering their bid to be, we're considering KPH at this point to be a non-responsive bidder. So, you're 100% correct. Even if we added the $140,000 that they requested to their bid, they would still be lower than Master Construction by roughly $175,000, if I recall. But yeah, I think our sensitivity to it was if they weren't competent enough to prepare a good bid and
confused them,
starting to play the game.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's why we require a bid bond with all projects bid, because they have to guarantee their bid.
Yeah, I guess I'd have, trouble paying more money because they want to change their bid without any recourse, because then everybody in town is paying more money for something because they made a mistake. I guess I agree. I think we have.
But that's where we go back after their bond, right?
Yeah, I think we have to get that difference back somehow, and I don't know if you can get that much off that bond or what.
Well, and there is another option, which is to force KPH to take the job. Now based on the verbal conversation we had, they requested that we either modify their bid or withdraw it, and then i.e. go after that's where then we would decide to go after a bid bond, but we could still go back to them and say, look, we are going to file a claim against your bid bond if you do not honor your bid. I'm not sure if there's any other recourses we can do in terms of...
How much time do we have before this project needs to get going?
We do have time.
So
we do have time.
My recommendation would be to go back to them, quite honestly, and say, if you don't honor this bid, we're going to go after you. Otherwise, honor the bid and let's move on. Before we go down and get another contractor.
I'd concur with that. I think, why should we have to pay more for their mistake and just...
I would just, and see what they say. If they say, sorry, we're withdrawing, then I guess, okay, we're going after you, and then we'll move on. If we, it's still, like I said, there's still stone on the ground. Nobody's going to move this quick.
How much is their bid bond worth?
5%.
Yeah, it's 5% of the total contract value. And just kind of backtracking a little bit, one of the reasons why we don't allow bidders to modify their bid after they submit it is that if you do that, that violates the public bidding requirements, and taxpayers can bring a claim and say you as an owner are allowing contractors to submit a bid and then come back in and say, oh, by the way, I made a mistake, and it sets a terrible precedent for
Sure, that makes sense.
And so that's why we're really sensitive to not allowing them to do that. They either have to honor it or withdraw it. You don't get the middle ground of modifying it after
And I think that's what we're saying here. I'm not saying we're gonna let them off 141. I'm saying, no, you honor your bid. We'll give you the opportunity to honor your bid. And if not, we're coming after you.
Even if we do drop their bid bond, then it's costing us more money.
Yeah, and that was the analysis we wanted to do, is look what our likely success on the bid bond was and kind of bring that back to the commission if that was something we thought worthwhile pursuing it. The bids are just opened late last week, so it was really hard to get that analysis to the commission.
I guess I'm still a little concerned. Over last summer, we seemed to have a little problem with KPH in that one project. That concerns me.
And I would agree with the mayor on that, because sometimes if you still force them into it, it could be a very lengthy and struggling project to get completed. So, and it might cost us more in the long run than what the difference is showing now.
Only thing is, the second bidder we've had some challenges with too.
Wouldn't disagree with you there either.
That's where I'm kind of going. So, I don't know.
Well, do you want to delay it until they've had some time to discuss it?
Yeah, I don't, talking with Chris earlier today, we felt that this isn't an urgent project. Now, again, delaying things, it can just lead to delays, and we don't know what that means, but I'd say the most responsible thing to do then would be to delay it, go back, talk to KPH and see if they'll honor the bid. And to Commissioner Wentz's point, I'd hate for the city to get into a position where we just have a bad working relationship with this particular project, and it's challenging for the next 8 months. But
we'll make a motion to delay then.
Yeah, we'll do some more homework here.
It was a struggle last summer.
Okay.
And fall.
Almost
a winter.
Do I hear a second?
The winner. Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 14, building permit review. Tina.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission members. For the permit for the last year, we've been working with the City of Fargo. With their staff, they've done a huge study as far as valuation amounts for building permits, whether it be contractor or homeowner based. And the sheet that you have there showing the minimums, we're trying to even the playing field for every single builder and also the homeowners, that when you get people that are trying to undercut whether it be a new home, lower level remodel, that we have no way to come back and justify what their fees are besides giving an estimate or a guess. And this just gives us a minimum standard to go by, which is well below at $95 per square finished foot on a house. And I think we're averaging right now on most homes 110 to 115, all the way up to close to 300 on it. But it gives us something, and it also makes the assessment value a little bit easier to swallow when someone says they got a 1,900 square foot basement and they want to finish it for $5,000. I mean, you couldn't do the bathroom for that. But it just gives us something else to go back to, so it keeps everybody in check. It is not increasing the values for our permit fees. It just gives us something that we know when they're undercutting it by a significant amount.
Okay. Any questions, Jay?
You said you got the study from Fargo?
We've been working with the City of Fargo and City of
Are
Moorhead.
these their fees to them?
They're using the exact same
fees, so you'll both be under the same?
Yep, our fees are a few dollars higher. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference, it's just the way it worked out. They were supposed to change their fees 2 years ago, or 3 years ago when we did, they did not on it. We had our building permit fees since 2007 that had not been changed, and we increased them. I was going off of Ron Strand's, that he was gonna increase them 5%, and so that's what we did. And the City of Fargo did not.
So when was this survey done, or whatever you're talking about, the study with Fargo?
Bruce Sarlson, the building official over there, did it probably since last fall and into this winter, and had us all. We have a meeting every month with area building officials. We all agreed what he was looking at, because there is a shortfall coming.
So so I guess I'm a little confused. When did your fees, if you saw those fees, why wouldn't they be the same, you mean?
What's that?
Fees. The fees have always been Why wouldn't, are the fees going up here right now, obviously?
Oh, the fees are not going up. This is just, if they're coming in with a $150,000 house, yet it should be probably at $250,000, we have a baseline to set them at that, no, you're way under. You've got to get closer to that valuation in total. So the building permit fees do not change. It's just that we can look at what they're giving us, tell them what's closer to what it should be.
And these are similar, like you said, within a few dollars of Fargo then?
Yeah, this exact same estimate is what City of Fargo is using.
Okay, okay.
And Moorhead is slightly different, but they got a little bit different program they have to follow.
Any other questions of Jay? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 15, house structure at Suket Estates, Lot 5, Block 7. Tina.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What I'm asking you today is for the ability to purchase a piece of property. It is directly behind the North Fire Station. And so if you want to try and visualize where it is, it'll be between the fire station and the new structure that's being built where Dee's Court was. And what I wanted to do was try and get that property so that we have it and it's out of that range and we can use that for a future city project, for future city use. As I said, it's right behind the fire department, whether it's for expansion for them or we have a lift station or something we need to put there. It's the only piece left. And we've talked with the owner, and we've got a very reasonable price of $119,708.40. And my request would be to use economic development sales tax. And the reason for that would be that if we do find that later we end up not needing to use that property, whether it's for the fire department or whether it's for city purpose, then we would have the ability to sell that and put the money back in economic development sales tax.
Any questions of Tina? If not, do I hear a motion to purchase?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carried. Item 16, second reading of parking ordinance amendment. John.
This is the second reading of the relatively straightforward ordinance change to require that vehicles that have sat for more than 72 hours be moved 100 feet. This is what staff has considered a first step, and then we're going to go back and meet to do some more overhauls of the parking ordinance in general. But this just requires it to be moved the 100 feet, and it's a second reading. It hasn't changed between the first and the second reading.
Any questions of John? Again, this is second reading. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have an offer to purchase John, we have some paperwork on it somewhere.
Yeah, this is a parcel on Cheyenne, and my apologies for adding it at the last minute. This is a parcel of property that we're acquiring, or that we need to acquire as part of the Cheyenne Project Reconstruct. I believe on the southern portion of the Cheyenne project, this is the only parcel that will need to go to eminent domain. And to be frank, the city and the property owner are just really far apart. Our appraisal came in about, in a range that was right around $100,000, and their offer was almost 4 times that. And so we've come back with what we think is our final offer, which is considerably higher than what we originally, the appraised value. And so this is a resolution that we have to do to offer to purchase it. They would have 5 days to respond to it, and then we would institute eminent domain proceedings that would start next week. So I would ask that the city commission would, in a part of authorizing this resolution, would authorize the city attorney's office to move forward with acquiring the property by eminent domain. We don't believe that the property owner will accept this because we're just so far apart, and talking with Tina and the staff, it's too far apart, and a judge or a jury is going to have to decide what the value is after hearing testimony from two different appraisers. We've reached the impasse, and I think it's really telling that it will be the only property owner, to my knowledge, that will have to use eminent domain on Cheyenne Street. So. I can answer any questions that you might have about it. But.
Any questions of John?
And how long does that process take? Will this have any effect as far as the timing of that project?
Great question. We actually had a long conference call with North Dakota DOT today. The process of actually obtaining possession of the property is rather quick. So, assuming that they don't accept our offer to purchase, we would institute the quick take proceedings next week. The property would then become, city would take possession of the property. The actual trial over the valuation, that could take 9 months to a year, maybe longer, before you actually have a trial on it. I suspect that the property owner will want to obtain their own appraisal. My understanding from talking to the right-of-way agents today and historically is that he's not opposed to the project. He understands the need for the project. It's just simply a money issue. So you're not going to have somebody who's upset at the city. It's money. So.
Any other questions of John? Now, do I hear a motion to offer to purchase?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tina?
Good evening. Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm going to go over a couple things that have already kind of been discussed. I wanted to start out talking about Cheyenne Street. As John said, there's only the one property that we're going to have to actually pursue eminent domain, so that worked out really well. We're really happy about that. When Dustin was talking about the trees, Moore Engineering actually did some maps for us to show us what trees are going to have to be taken out and for what reasons. And there are approximately 9 trees that are going to have to come out because we weren't able to get that temporary easement to put that road in further back on the properties. And so my intention is to, since we can't wait, we can't hold the project off, I will be sending letters out to all those people along the road to let them know that the city tried to do everything we could in our power to save these trees, but at this point we're left with nothing else to do. And in an effort to get the project so that we can keep moving, that's what we're going to do. And so I'll send some letters out, and Melissa said she'd help me draft them. We want them to just understand that it isn't our intention to come and rip out beautiful trees. That's far from it, but this is really our only avenue we have right now. The next item is, I wanted to let you know on the sewer connection, the sewer line to Fargo. John's office is working on the eminent domain process for the properties that we have to work on there. We're in the process of getting appraisals, he said, right now. So that one's moving along at a different pace. It's not holding anything up or anything. We're moving forward with that one. The budget process is starting. I will be sending out to all of you, as I had said before, Aaron was working on a budget outline of dates and coordination and different things like that. So he's got an outline of the budget process that him and I have reviewed, and I'll be sending that out to you, and then we'll get the process started, and I'll ask, you guys can get back to me with questions or comments or thoughts on the process as you see it when I send it out. So that will be probably tomorrow. Tomorrow night, the police awards ceremony and swearing in of new officers will take place tomorrow evening, and they're going to have families there, and they're going to have a potluck, and it should be really, really nice. That starts at 5:30. tomorrow morning.
Do we need to bring something for that? We need to
I guess it's just bring yourself.
You can bring chips.
There you go. Tomorrow morning, Eggs and Issues is being held, and Heath is actually on the panel, so we will be there to cheer him on and see how that goes. Wednesday, the 4th, the 9th and 13th Avenue project, the business meeting with the different business owners. They had been promised a meeting for that intersection because it affected them so much last year. So Chris and Dustin and Melissa set up a meeting from 12 to 1 on Wednesday to meet with them to talk through it and just kind of keep them posted on what's going on. There will be another meeting later that will be for the corridor from like Spitfire up, but this is just for the other one.
That should be a lot less than last year, no?
Well, it's significantly less than that. We're not shutting down 13th Avenue again. Last year was very problematic because of the full closure of 13th. But, construction is construction. We're going to be in the area. Things will be slow moving again. 9th will be down to head-to-head traffic. There'll be periods of time where the driveways off of 9th will have to be closed. There'll be short periods of time, but we're working with Dakota Underground on how to minimize headaches out there. But
Okay, good. Do the best you can.
Yes, we'll do the best we can.
The next reminder that we have is that the final day to file petitions for any office, city, park, the judge, will be April 9th. They have to be in by 4 o'clock. And the next day is an even better day. April 10th is their equalization meeting. So Nick has been working, and notices went out. He's met with some different commercial people. I haven't gotten a whole lot of word back, but things seem to be going along quite well. So with that, do you have questions for me?
Any questions of Tina?
Thank you very much.
Any other non-agenda items? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.